Good evening. It's another Wednesday night. That means it's lighting chat night. And of course, I have got our good friend Nick from Chauvet. Good evening, Nick.
Hey, what's up, John? How's it going, DJNTV?
Hey, things are going well. It's going very, very well. We've got a lot of ground to cover tonight because, well, as we're getting into the wedding season, guys are wanting to, do more with their lights, and they're wanting to find ways to control their lights and to be able to get more out of them. And I couldn't think of anyone better to tackle this subject tonight of light control than yourself.
Yeah, and there are so many different ways to control lights out there. So this is going to be a really quick overview, but I think it's a great place to start and at least kind of figure out which way your compass is pointing in this respect, and try and see where you really want to go when it comes to actual control of your fixtures.
Sure.
That can really change the persona of your event.
Oh, by far. So let's kind of start on one end. For the guys who are wanting some simple type control, because I mean I've seen some of the things you do, and I wouldn't call that simple. But let's kind of give a little advice for the guys who are wanting some simple but wanting some control. Where would they go, or what would they do?
Well, and honestly, and I can speak for Chauvet. I obviously can't speak for any other manufacturers out there, but the place to start with the most simple and the most basic control is right on the light itself, the display. The display that's on that light should give you, or at least in Chauvet's sake, gives you almost all control right from that very display. You don't need a remote, you don't need a controller, anything. You can set a color, you can set programs, and obviously this varies from fixture to fixture. Some are a little different because they require a little bit more control, like fog machines, for instance. Although our Hurricane Haze 2D, you can set right on the back of the display, and you don't even need a remote. This is nice because then if you don't have to worry about losing your remote. If you bring the fixture, it's there, it works, you can control it. There are some features that you lose, like for instance with the Hurricane Haze 2D, you lose the timer remote. You can't actually have it go off at a certain interval. And sometimes the auto programs being able to switch is not as easy, but you can still select custom colors. You can, things like that. Like our PARs, you can control right in the back of the display and set a specific color and remember exactly what each of those numbers are. And if you power the unit off, you plug it right back in, it'll come right on as that color. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a nice feature, and it's a great thing that most of Chauvet's fixtures anyway have that. Makes that first basic step of control really easy.
Okay.
So the next step above that, which is honestly, in my opinion, what most guys are doing right now, guys and girls, can't forget the girl wedding DJs, yep. They're out there. Is the IR remote control. We have something at Chauvet called the IRC6. It's a 6-color IRC or infrared remote control. Actually, you know what? I'm totally gonna go grab one. I'm sorry, I totally forgot to put it over here. I set it on top of my phone, and I totally forgot to bring it in here.
See, now this is what's the cool part about live broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. You get to go see the inside of Nick's house.
No, I intentionally kept my camera. You don't want to see that mess. And there's a random projector sitting up there. No big deal.
Yeah. How many people have a projector up on a stand in their house? No.
Yeah. Well. My fiance is a little pissed about it, but it's always there. But anyway, so right here we have our IRC6 remote.
Uh-huh.
This is actually a 6-color. See, it's red, green, blue, amber, white, and UV.
Okay.
So you can actually control all 6 colors in a hex fixture with this remote right here. Okay. It's got some preset colors. It's got some auto programs. You can control specific levels with these plus and minus signs. There's a lot of these out there in the market right now too. It's not just Chauvet, but Chauvet does throw these in, throw the compatibility with this in, as well as with some products throw these in with it. Like for instance, our Freedom series come with one of these remotes, so it's really nice and handy, and you don't have to worry about buying any extra equipment.
Now, Nick, with the IR remotes, now if I have one for the Hex light, will that same Hex one work on the Freedom, or are they different?
Absolutely. It's a granted, these are generally made per your brand. So if you have a Chauvet IRC remote, it works with your Chauvet products that have IR functionality.
Okay.
Now, if you have an American DJ product, this remote may not work with that unit. In fact, I can pretty much guarantee it won't. But American DJ sells a remote like this. Same with Blizzard and Eternal and all those other companies.
Sure, sure.
So they have IR control type like this that will work, and it's a great technology because it's simple, it's easy, fits in your pocket.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to worry about carrying a whole bunch of other stuff. And the other thing too is it gives you some specific colors that you can pre-select from that are already mixed for you, so you know what you're getting and you know what you're getting out of it.
Yeah.
One of the things that's really important to remember with these guys is that because it has 6 colors doesn't mean it only works with hex fixtures. It works also with RGB fixtures because it just has the RGB. It works with RGBA fixtures. It'll work with RGB AW, even though Chauvet doesn't really have any RGB AW fixtures, but we just skipped and went right to the hex. So
exactly.
Yeah, why not? So that's the next level of control is this IRC remote.
Sure.
Again, if you lose it, you forget it at a gig, forget it at home. It's no big deal because most of the fixtures that we offer have the same type of control from the display itself. So you're covered in that respect. The next level of control is actually kind of similar to this. And I'm throwing it around the living room here. The next level of control is actually very similar to the IRC 6 or the IRC, but it's using DMX to do the same thing. I'm going to start out with our Obey series.
Okay.
Are you familiar with our Obey series at all, John?
I have played a little bit with I believe, I don't remember the number, but I've got one that I use actually with my show, and it has 8 sliders on it.
Okay. Is it 8 or 10?
Okay, it could be 10.
Okay. If it's 8, it's probably the Obey 40.
Yeah.
It's got like 12 fixtures on the side that you can select from.
It's got way more functionality than I understand how to use.
Hey, then, don't worry. We're going to touch on that. I promise. So the basic control that we have something called the Obey 3. Now, in the naming, don't let the naming kind of confuse you. It's more like levels.
Okay.
Our Obey 3 is capable of controlling 3 color fixtures. So in other words, you've got your R, G, and B, and it'll allow you to mix the different colors together to actually make that specific color that you want. But it's a very basic controller. It's a lot like the IRC 6, where you actually can set the specific color you want. You also have color macros. It has built-in chases, so you don't have to worry about thinking about that kind of thing. There's a lot of like if you daisy chain several lights together, like let's say you have 4 RGB pars, and you daisy chain them all together and then run them off the Obey 3. You can actually make them do different color programs with that controller without having to know anything about programming whatsoever.
Nice.
And it's really nice because it's all built in. You don't need to know, I need to have it at level 255 to get it to do this, and at 110 to do this. You don't need to know any of the numbers. It's very, very basic.
Nice.
It's helpful for people because they don't want to think about it. They're worrying about DJing. They want to they want to make it sure that it's a great night for the bride and groom or corporate event or whatever it is you're doing. They don't want to focus on that. So this is a great basic controller. We took it to the next level then. We now have the Obey 4, which is a 4-color fixture. Now this guy, well, I actually have one of these here. This is actually the Obey 4 DeFi. This has a antenna built into it for wireless control, but we're not going to talk about that at the moment because we'll cover that another time. The main benefit that this offers is you actually have...
higher, Nick, because we're a little...
sorry.
Yep, there we go, because we're cut off a little bit. There you go.
No worries. So in the Obey 4, you actually get 4 channels or 4 individual fixtures that you can control with this product itself. So you can actually select one fixture, make it a color, and then select another fixture and make it a different color completely. Which is really kind of nice because if, let's say, you want to have an alternating color, like for instance, you want to go red, green, red, green, red, green, if it's Christmas or whatever, you can do that with this board. In fact, you can do up to 4 different colors individually. And the nice thing about this guy, too, is it also gives you a lot of those same built-in color programs. For instance, you've got all your different colors here. This is your preset here. You can set the preset colors. And this will allow you to fade the preset colors in and jump between the different colors. And it's all built in. You don't have to worry about any programming with this board either. It's all just a built-in setup.
Sure.
These are very basic controllers. They're meant for very basic applications. They're meant to be plugged into RGB pars or RGB type fixtures. So, for example, you've got a 4-bar try. 4-bar tries have 2 different modes that they can be run in. One is where you actually have specific color over each of the pars. So you have red, green, and blue faders, which would be these guys right here, control over the specific, over each of the par heads or whatever.
Yeah.
And that'll give you that specific control of each of them, and you can make it, dance or do, whatever. But the next level is it has built-in auto programs and speed, and there's a whole bunch of other features that are built into that unit that you can't access with this controller, because it just doesn't have the digital display or readout or anything that can convey that. So this is really meant for pars.
Yeah.
It's not meant for moving heads or anything like that. And the same thing with the Obey 3. It's really not meant for moving heads.
Sure.
So we've got a manual RGB button right here, RGBW button, that will allow you to control each of the individual faders, just like the Obey 3, and control colors and things like that.
Yep.
So really nice and easy. It does have built-in chases, and the nice thing about upgrading to an Obey 4 over like an Obey 3 is those built-in chases will actually jump between the different numbers. So like if you're on one of the chases, this will be red and this will be green, and they'll sit there and they'll swap. So it gives you a little bit more control, a little bit more flexibility, but without having to know anything about programming whatsoever. Sure. You just know that you set your lights to channel 1 and channel 4, or 5 in this respect, and you're ready to go. They're really nice and easy. The next level up above that is our Obey 6, which is catered specifically to hex-colored series fixtures, which I know that you and I have talked about at a couple of different shows. And, in fact, at LDI last year, when you were there, I know we talked about the Obey 6 a little bit. That's it's the same thing as the Obey 4. It's specifically targeted to hex color fixtures. However, it does work with hex, quad, and penta color fixtures. Penta, of course, is RGBAW.
Sure.
And it has the same presets, chase programs, all that other stuff built into it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really want to take your show to the next level, though, let's say you have like a color palette. Let's say you have a core 3x1 or 3x3 that has a lot of built-in programs, or even your 4-bar, like we were talking about before, that has a lot of built-in programs in it, but you don't really, you just want to start using them and control speed with them, but you don't need to do all the other RGB color fading or whatever.
Yeah. The
next level of board is our Obey 10. The Obey 10 has a digital display. It can hold 8 fixtures. I believe it's 8, and then you can actually physically adjust the faders and see what number that you're actually hitting.
Yeah.
Like in DMX addressing, it's really, you really have to know what DMX level you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with like an RGB par, it doesn't matter. You can see where it is. You can fade it in and out and up and down, and it'll be really easy to understand. And there's a direct result with the fader to what's going on in the actual light. Whereas with like a moving head or a color palette or like a 4-bar try with different programs, you want to be at a specific number so that it matches the program that you're running at. So that's where the Obey 10 comes in. It's really great for that sort of thing. That one also will allow you to save and store scenes in. So if you find that specific program, that perfect look that you're looking for a certain point in the night or the show or whatever, you can save it and store it and actually recall it later.
Nice. Which
is really cool. One of the things that you lose by going to the Obey 4 or Obey 10, from the Obey 4 and Obey 6 is this little guy right here. Audio sensitivity control.
Oh, yeah.
This thing will actually bounce. It'll cause the lights to jump to the beat of the music, which is awesome because it makes you look like you're doing a bunch of work and you're not.
Yeah, for sure.
That's really a great thing. The Obey 10 will do that, but you have to pre-program it, and it doesn't have sensitivity control. It will respond to audio, and then it also has a tap sync, so you can sit there and go tap, 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 and it'll follow the BPM that you set. So it's just a different level of control.
Yep.
You have to do a little more pre-programming. You have to do a little bit more work ahead of time to get it going. But once it's going, it gives you a lot more flexibility, and you can really engineer your shows specifically to match whatever the client's looking for.
Sure.
So the next level up of that is actually the board that I think you were talking about, John, which is the Obey 40.
Okay.
Obey 40 is one of our top-selling boards. It's very, very popular. It's great for moving heads. It's great for things like the Intimidator Spot Duo, where you have a lot of channels that you need to control and set specific parameters to match exactly what you want the light to do. The really big benefit that the Obey 40 offers is the 16 channels per fixture. So like, I mean, I don't know if you know, like in our Intimidator 350, that has the option of either, I think it's 8 or 14 channels. It might be 9 or 14 channels. But anyway, it has a total of 14 channels.
Mm-hmm.
If you put that on an Obey 10, there just won't be room for it.
Yeah.
You can't fit the whole thing on there. You're going to have to take up other channels of other fixtures, which will limit the amount that you can control. That's why it's really, really important to match what your system is with the board you get. And that's probably why people buy the Obey 40, is because it's so open for the future. Like it can expand into the future. So
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, and that's the Obey 40 is really, really good at that. It's really good at doing pretty much everything.
Mm-hmm.
However, there is one big difference that the Obey 40 doesn't have, that a lot of like larger consoles and boards have, that I think is a very important feature. The next step up from the Obey 40 is the Obey 70. Oh, you know what? I totally forgot something. Obey 40. MIDI control. That actually has a MIDI input in it that can actually receive a MIDI signal from like a computer or from a MIDI pad or something like that, where you can actually trigger scenes from the Obey 40 with a MIDI trigger in. So now you've got 240 scenes that you can trigger from an audio sync or a MIDI pad in. So now the guy that's sitting there playing his instrument, he has this MIDI pad next to him, and he wants to change the lights. He just taps the button, and it changes on the board. He doesn't have to touch the board; it just does its own thing. I mean, you obviously have to do all the pre-programming. Yeah, but once it does it, you're good. You're set up. So that's one of the big benefits to the Obey 40 is the MIDI control. I'm a huge proponent of that. I know a lot of guys out there that are using it for their shows, for control of their softwares and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big underestimates about the Obey 40 is the MIDI control.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, back to the Obey 70. The Obey 70, the next level up, it gives you this basically the same function, except instead of having 16 channels to work with, you now have 32 per fixture.
Nice.
You also have a little XY joystick on there where you can use. And there's not too many guys anymore use the joystick so much for XY, but it's a really nice thing if you're trying to spot something, like hit something on the fly, because you can just tap it and it'll slowly move the moving head over into the right position. And that's really nice if you let's say that you plan to have a moving head spotting the best man has to stand at the microphone.
Sure.
But of course, what does he do? He grabs the mic and he walks a couple feet over to the left.
Yep.
You're like, all right, tap, tap, tap. And it'll tap it and move the moving head over and keep him spotted. Nice. Which is really nice. And it's a very underutilized function of that board, but it's a very nice board. The other thing that's really cool about the Obey 70 is the LCD liquid crystal display on it. Very clear, very easy to read. You can see what's going on with it. It's a really cool thing. One of the things that I kind of skipped, because I don't want to confuse people too much, but I'll just briefly mention it, about both the Obey 40 and Obey 70. Look at the user manuals. We spend a lot of time writing those suckers. Those things are really long and really, trust me, I have to look at every single one. Yeah. And the functionality of those boards is so great. There's so much stuff that it can do. Like for instance, you can take your Obey 40 and actually change the location of a fader. So like if you have let's say you have two moving heads and you want to put them on different channels, but you want to only use one fader to control their dimmer. That's it. You can actually move that the other DMX channel from the other fixture over to the first one so that they match. It's the amount of control on these things is amazing, and they're really underutilized. And that's one of those things you can find in the manual. You can find all the MIDI channel things in the manual that I was talking about before. There's so much stuff in that manual that it's just a great resource. So don't forget to check that out. So Obey 70, the last board I want to talk about is kind of a different animal. This is more of a theater oriented board. This one is meant to be hooked up to dimmer racks. It's meant to be hooked up to very large. I shouldn't say very large theater systems, but small theater systems. Okay. That one is the. Oh my gosh! Sorry, this thing's heavy. The Stage Designer 50. This is as you can see, I can't even really fit it in the screen very easily, but it's a 48 channel board. There's 24 faders here that go all the way across the top here, and you can actually patch them pretty much anywhere you want. And the cool thing about these is these have what some of the technology that we put into the Obey 6, which was bump buttons. You actually press these buttons and it'll max the fader out. So it's really meant to be on an old car cam system.
Yeah.
So you can kind of set different things. But the really cool thing is that it's an A to B to fader system. So you can actually go back and forth between two different scenes or two different cues and fade between the two of them, which is really, really nice. I'll be honest, this board is incredibly complicated, and I've just recently, since I came to Chauvet, started to play around with it, and it has completely blown me away with the amount of stuff that it can do. This one also does have, of course, the MIDI inputs on the back, so you can use the same MIDI trigger as you would with a lot of other boards. This one, the cool thing about this one is it also has a line-in audio jack. You can see there. So you can actually take a line in right off of your mixer or whatever, and actually pick up a really good high quality audio signal right off of that mixer, which is really awesome. It's not just a sound sync or a sound setting. It'll actually take the true line level input off of a like a console or whatever.
Sure.
So it's a great function. That's actually a really, really handy feature. So finally, the last form of control that Chauvet offers is the Show Express software. And I'm going to just kind of briefly talk about software in general because we've already kind of talked about this. Software is really, really nice because it allows you to visualize what your fixture's actually doing. It also allows you to basically be an artist when it comes to programming. This is what I use. I always use software or some kind of a large software-based board because I want it to be able to do exactly what I want it to do at that moment instantly. And I want to be able to think about it and make it do it. And sometimes I don't even have my fixtures connected to my computer when I program. I have to program on the plane or something like that on the way over. And that's all in in Show Express we have a 3D view where you can actually see what the fixtures are doing and everything. And that's been so helpful. And that's one of the benefits of software is you can render everything or show everything beforehand. And it's a really beneficial part of software.
Now, how technically savvy do you need to be with when you say you're designing it? In the visual. Do you have to have a graphics background to do that? I mean, how just kind of explain a little bit of how you put that together.
The key thing is you have to understand DMX. You have to understand that DMX is in a DMX universe is 512 channels. Each of those channels has 0 to 255. Each of those channels does one thing or another for a specific fixture. So you have to remember that you're programming all these little steps and all these little scenes, and they're basically just a row of channels that are all set to a specific value. And actually, if you ever want to see something really cool, if you do use Show Express, this is just a message to anybody that uses Show Express. Turn on your DMX level chart and watch during when one of your scenes is being played. It's like this little. It shows all the different levels of the DMX popping up and down, and it's just the coolest thing. Maybe I'm just too nerdy to think that's cool, but man, it is the coolest darn thing to see. But it's kind of like the guy looking at the Matrix code. It's like, you see the Matrix code, and it's like, oh my god, that's so cool. But everyone else just sees these green lines flying across the screen. But anyway. So the learning the software and actually operating it and using it is actually fairly simple. We try and make it as easy as possible. When you sometimes in certain fixtures you don't even need the manual to be able to operate some fixtures. In fact, I can pretty much guarantee most guys don't even look at it before they put it into the software. But we do a lot of profiles for all of our fixtures, and we have a couple other profiles for other manufacturers' fixtures in there as well. In fact, we have a lot of other ones. So when you dump a fixture into Show Express, you can actually see what all the different channels in that fixture do. If it's RGB, if it's a moving head, you've got XY. You've got all these different options that you can possibly control and operate. That'll make it a little bit easier to visualize it. And in all honesty, we live in a computer-based world now. Most people are a little more comfortable setting something up for the first time on a computer than they are on a board.
Oh, for sure.
Because the board just seems more foreign to them. They don't really get the whole programming aspect of things and how you have to go into programming mode and then set your scene and hit save. It's kind of like, it's weird. But with the software, you can actually see the scene you're creating. You can see what it's doing, and then you can save as, like you would in like a Word document or whatever. And then it's saved. It's right there. It's your light scene. It's titled whatever you wanted it to title, and then you can trigger it back through live. So it's a little bit, in my opinion, in this day and age, the software is always the easier place to begin. It does require a little bit more of a money commitment when it comes to the different dongles that you need to plug it in. But like our software, Show Express, is free. You just download it and you can use it. Now you're going to need to, to actually hook it up to a light, you're going to need to buy, the one of the 3 dongles we have. We have a cheap, like a good, a better, and a best.
Sure.
So, and there are certain things that go along with each of the different levels of that software. We've got our small one, which is our Show Express 100. That one will only allow you to use 100 channels or 10 fixtures, which, for most guys, that's fine.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It'll work great. Yeah, and you can also, it says only 10 fixtures, but as you know, John, I'm sure, but I'm not sure how much the people listening know, with DMX, you can actually just double up your fixtures in the same address.
Yep.
If you have 2 pars, and they're both RGB pars, and you put them on channel 1, if you make them both channel 1 and you turn up the red fader, they'll both turn on. Yep. They'll both turn on red. It's just mirroring the fixtures. Granted, you can't individually control them, but they'll do the same thing. And if that's all you're going for, then the Show Express 100 is perfect for you. Our next level up is just the Express 512, which obviously 512 in the name, that means it's a full universe. Yep. This is our most commonly sold one because it gives you full control everything with the software, and it's good. That's the ones I use because I don't need the big crazy badass boss dog of them all. It has its purpose though. Mm-hmm. The big one, the Show Express Plus, has like auto date and time. It has a time zone locator. It's got a DIN plug on the outside of it, so you can actually hook it to switches. It'll trigger it from the outside world. You can trigger it with an IR remote, and the box can be running completely standalone away from the actual computer itself, which is really cool because you can set it up. Like, let's say you got some guys out there that are doing a install in a club. You can buy a Show Express 512 and dump 18 scenes into the thing. And you can trigger those 18 scenes from an IR remote. So you just give that IR remote to the client, and then during the night he can switch the colors. If it's a cigar bar, or if it's like a whatever bar, you can change the mood of the place by just hitting the IR remote. All saved in the box without having any computer connected whatsoever.
Interesting.
And then if he calls you up next week and says, hey, by the way, I think we need to change up the programs a little bit. Why don't you come in and change it up? You just walk in, plug into it, change the scenes how he wants, save it, and then unplug your computer and walk out. It's that easy. I know a lot of guys that do that very thing in clubs right now because it's so easy for them to just walk in and just reprogram it.
Yeah.
But that's, those interfaces, that interface specifically, so that was a difficult word combination. That one is more expensive interface, and I think it's upwards of $800, and that's normal. It's right. pretty normal for and actually it's pretty cheap for software these days. But that's the top end, the big craziest thing in the world. But you don't need to go that big. You really don't. You can go with a 512 or even a Show Express 100 and still get all the benefits of a Show Express software, including the wireless phone app, which is awesome. So
now, how does the wireless phone app work? What does that allow you to do?
So in your live screen in Show Express, which is basically the front face of Show Express, it's the spot where you trigger all of your scenes to show up on your lights. That's the one you'd use during play. You wouldn't really use editor for playback. You'd use live for playback. That's why it's called live. And you can actually trigger live from your phone. Let me see if I actually... Alan's going to kill me if I don't have this app on here. Let me see. I'm sure I have it on here somewhere. But so what you can do is you can actually set it up where you have 10 scenes on your phone, and you can trigger them right from the phone itself. So let's say you do have a computer in your business, and you have Show Express running out that's controlling the entire building with your lighting, you can actually trigger it right from your phone, from the office, from anywhere you basically can. You're on the same internet router. You know, if you have one router in your business or something, and as long as you're connected to the same router, you can see the software from that computer.
Sure.
And you'll be able to attach to it. Oh man, that sucks. I totally don't have it on. Oh, there it is. Found it. All right. So you see, you can actually trigger live right from your phone right here.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives you all the options. Right now, I probably don't have a computer hooked up to it, but let's see if I got it. I don't think I have my computer hooked up right now. No, I don't. So it'll actually pop up, and the live screen will actually show up right on your phone right there. So if you're a programmer, you can actually add pictures, you can add colors, all these different things into the live screen for each of the buttons. Now, when you press a button, that triggers a scene or a macro that will make your lights do whatever it is that you program them to do. So let's say you want the whole bar to be red. You can make that button red so that they know when you hit the button, it's red. Very simple.
Yeah.
It just makes things incredibly easy for the actual people that are using the system, and you can make it so much easier for them, and they'll want to buy it from you and keep working with you in the future because you're helping them out and saving them time and hassle. So it's just that, you know, this whole progression of all the controllers that we've talked about, the Show Express really is the top end of it.
Sure.
But it also is a great place to start too, if you want to go that route. Obviously, you know, if you're used to the obeys, more power to you. They are great controllers, and they really simplify the work of DMX control, especially with, you know, moving heads or whatever for the higher Obey series, or even just the regular Obey 3 with a RGB power control. It's an amazing little system. So, yeah, I mean, that's a really quick little overview of controllers. I could probably talk to you all day about how to actually program them.
For sure. That would be.
But in reality, it's different for everybody. Everybody uses a board a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Like your board, for instance, your DMX board that you have that you use for controlling lights. I bet you most of the stuff that you do is probably not even saved.
Oh,
it's
for
probably
sure.
Just
yep, it's
quick
just literally
recall, and that's it.
Yep, exactly. I know kind of where I want to be, and I keep looking at the software, thinking someday. But then, you know, as I've told some other folks, is that I change. 1 week I'll be running, you know, this type of light fixture and then this type of light fixture, and really I spend more time with the manual. It's, okay, this week I want this light set to a 5-channel, and I want to be able to control that, and that. So, yeah, someday.
Well, and that's one of the benefits about software is that they're like, for instance, with Show Express, you have the ability to create the profile that your par or moving head or whatever it is, you can actually create that profile in the software and save it.
Oh, sure.
So that way you can just add it right in. Whenever you're ready to use it, just throw it in there and you're good to go.
Yeah,
it's a really easy thing to do, and it's actually really quick to do. We've got a couple of guys here at the office that do that actually create the Show Express profiles for them, and I'm jealous of those guys because I'd love to create those profiles and play around with the lights then a little bit after that to make sure they work, you know. But that's not my my area, I guess. But the it's a really cool thing that you can make your own profiles. You know what I mean? It's just such a beneficial thing, and that's one of the things that software offers for you.
Yeah,
is you can do that. Whereas with the other boards, you're kind of at the mercy of whatever you can wrap your head around.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
Great stuff. Well, thank you much. We've got about a half hour here, so I don't want to take up too much time tonight, but what a
all good.
Great overview of the different types of control out there. And I think for those who are, you know, at one point or another, you know, this might help them to decide, you know, if that's a good spot for them, or maybe it's time to move along and upgrade.
Well, and if there's any other topics that we haven't covered that you want to go into a little more detail, I mean, just let us know. We'll be happy to. I'm happy to spend more time on any of these issues, any of these topics.
Yeah.
You know, and it's one of those things that if people have an interest, we'll focus on it.
Yeah.
No problem.
So if you have any thoughts or anything, put those in the comments below the video, right down there, and we will take a look at those, and we can talk about those in an upcoming episode. Or you can go out and to our Facebook page or wherever you can find us, leave a message, and we'll look at that in a future show.
There you go.
Great. Well, once again, Nick, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, John. Appreciate it.
This is John Young with the Disc Jockey News and Disc Jockey News TV. Good night.